We have 5 fallacies about the Cowboys offseason. And I want to, this is from Blogging the Boys. Do you believe it's a myth or do you believe it's a good journalism here? Jerry Jones is too stubborn and only cares about his brand is number 1. Blogging the Boys says the reality is the Joneses do care about winning. They just have a different approach than most, or maybe you would, Brian. What do you say?
You know, for so many years, Gavin, you were always telling me that they thought about the brand more than winning, and I didn't want to believe it. And it's starting to appear that way. I really didn't want to believe it. After working 14 years with the Joneses and stuff like that, I thought winning was really important to them. I think they like to win. But I think they want to do it their way. So, their way is not my way, obviously, because they got rid of me. They said, hey, we don't need you in the building anymore. So that's fine. But I just feel like, though, that part of it's unfortunate, because if there's anybody that's benefited from a fan base and support and all that, it's been the Cowboys and the Joneses. They to me, it's if it's all about just the brand, then man, that's gonna be hard to be. That's hard to be a fan of this team that way.
Yeah, it is. They should give back more. They should go for it for us.
Yeah.
How much we've given to them without anything back for 30 years.
I think that there's certain points in times. I see what Ray Davis did with the Rangers. They went out and they got a general manager that's, and trust me, I previous general manager I was friends with, so to get CY in here, to spend the money, to spend almost $500 million on players. That's a commitment right there. And the Joneses, they've spent money, but they've spent money how they want to spend money. And there's certain things they're really, really good at. We talk about the drafting and things like that, but we're going to see. We're going to see about what happens. This next year is going to be huge because they could be getting rid of a coach. They could be getting rid of a quarterback, and we'll see how that all plays out. But the part of the brand I didn't want to believe. But I think you're right.
I think they're too smart to accidentally run a team that's just incapable of winning a championship. I think this has to be intentional in order to maximize profits. If they think this is also the best way to win a championship, then we're really up the creek without a platter.
Yeah,
paddle?
yeah. This is
platter or paddle?
Platter. I could use like a fried food platter.
Yeah, you're like floating down the creek with your boys, and you got a platter. Maybe brought his charcuterie board that he's so proud of.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's wearing socks at least to cover his shoe. You cover his foot while you try and keep your appetite.
Man, I'm getting old right before your eyes.
We're gonna have to pull that. We're gonna need to break that one down.
The creek without a platter is amazing.
Yeah, dude. Who would want to be on a nice boat going up a creek and not have a nice platter of fried food? Yeah. That's the way I see it, Chief.
Eating catfish while you're cruising the creek.
We had a good conversation going on here about their incompetent team building until I lost grasp of the English language there. What do you want to add to the conversation?
I'm putting a note in there to just make sure we pull that back. We're going to need to break it down. There was a handful of slip-ups on the way to the grand finale. That was awesome.
Yeah, where was I?
It started with panels and ended with platters. And there were some creeks involved. That was great. Ultimately, I don't remember either, but I think it was, you nailed it, whatever the take was.
Well, the thing about the whole thing was about is the brand more important?
Oh, yes, yeah, because they're not actually, if you're not building this thing to actually win a Super Bowl. You're building it to be solid. You know that by doing X, Y, and Z, you can be solid, but there's the business factor of all this is way more important.
Yeah.
And that's just...
You can't mess up the bag by trying to win the Super Bowl really hard.
Right.
And a number of teams are. In the old NFL, and old I say 15 years ago, you could do that. It was a good strategy. The Giants won twice like that.
Yeah.
Steelers won like that. The Packers teams were winning like that.
I just remember competing against a Jerry Jones who was up to his eyeballs in debt, and that's when we got the best Jerry Jones as a general manager.
Yeah,
because he had to do things he had to be aggressive. He had to try and turn things around. He was losing $1 million a month on his football team, and he couldn't sustain that. So to me, that
was a time you had to win to get paid. Now you don't have to win big to get paid.
I think we're asking too much of 81-year-old Jerry Jones to do anything different.
Yeah,
I mean, now I'll point the finger at Steven and others in that family. Yeah, you need to take the mantle from your dad and do things a little bit differently here. But your brand is what it is. But there's a fan base out here that deserves a championship.
So I think we all disagree with Blogging the Boys saying that that's a fallacy. I think they say it is only cares about his brand. It should be cares about brand more than winning. Yeah. Prioritizes brand over winning. And maybe it's 51-49, but whatever ratio it is, it's too business focused. Now, they do some things well. Fallacy number 4, the Cowboys let good players go. And I love this. They let Pollard go. They let Biotish go. They let Hankins go. They let Dorrance Armstrong go. It was a master class in letting average players go who were about to make millions.
I have no problem. And I said it earlier when we were talking about it, the only problem I had was the Tyron Smith one. Because when you see the final numbers in the Tyron Smith one, you're thinking, well, maybe they could have stepped up on that one.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is these guys walk out of the door, and it's no problem the guy's walking out of the door, but then you're standing there by the door, and you're waiting for people to come in, and you're not getting any of that. So now you haven't replaced any of these guys.
Yeah, that's the reality is, they've done a really good job of drafting and letting the right guys go, but one of these years over the last 3 or 4 years, they needed to pick that one and make a huge move towards winning the Super Bowl and making sure they could run the ball and stop the run. And they never did those.
They might be letting go of their quarterback after this season.
Yeah.
That might be the next move they make.
That would be huge. Cowboys paint themselves into a corner come draft time. I do believe that that's a fallacy. Number 5, the Cowboys wait too long to extend their own players.
They know the pressure, though. The scouts feel pressure there. They feel it, and that's their job. Yeah. But they know how important this draft is for them.
I mean, a lot of years they'll go about making sure they don't have any holes,
right?
And this year they've left more holes.
They've left,
So, and that's just because they are up against the cap in a major way. I think that's one thing. If I was going to add a fallacy, is that the Cowboys have suddenly gone cheap this year. That's not the case. They had so many good players, and they've been pushing money back.
Right.
Now is where it all comes due.
Right. The Bills do here.
Yeah, the Bills do. Yeah. And the crazy thing about that, Chief, is even with them managing it so conservatively, the bill still comes due. Even with saying, oh my goodness, we got to look at this as a 3 or 4 year plan. We got to manage it more conservatively and not really go for it. Even then, the bill comes due, and you have to basically, I think, flush 2 years of optimal winning in Dak's prime. As you get this cap in order. It's the reality of pro football and pro sports. And they still have not figured out a way to maximize that cycle well enough.